what about a business specifically? If there's one piece of advice, say a business is just getting started, they've had some success, they must feel like, hey, we've struck out of this process. We're trying to be authentic. What piece of advice would you give specifically a business in building their audience through social media? Mike, what's your take?
Well, the thing is that we talk about social media generically, but in fact, each social medium is a different community. It's got a different vibe to it. And so this is one of the big challenges from a sort of resources or time perspective, which is that how do you engage on each of the media in the way that they need to be engaged with? So, the sort of Facebook audience has one set of constraints. And by the way, this is one of the newest things in social media. I'm probably answering a question you're going to be answering in a few minutes, but one of the newest things in social media is this continued disintegration of the social media landscape. More people are going off into smaller and smaller social networks and even messaging applications that are substituting for social media. And there are hybrids like Snapchat where you can actually do some pretty rich, compelling storytelling inside of a messaging app that was originally meant to just send ephemeral messages to other people. It's a really interesting community because you have all these opportunities, but at the same time, the demographics on Snapchat are very, very different than any other social media. Facebook is the only social media that is super mainstream, that's super broad-based, 1.4 billion users, but that has its own challenges as well because people on Facebook oftentimes are reluctant to talk about brands, to talk about products, to talk about anything other than the content of their personal social lives.
Right. And
so there's no substitute for heavy engagement on each and every social network that you want to have a presence on. You have to immerse yourself in the culture of each social network and really understand what's happening, find the communities, and be a full-fledged member of those communities. That's that's something that's part science and part art, and it requires a lot of intuition and things like that. So again, it all goes back to who is doing the social media engagement for your company. It has to be somebody who's got a knack for it, and there's just no alternative, no substitute for having somebody who's good at social media, going in and spending lots and lots of time being a full-fledged member of each and every community. So
you talk about tribes and communities. It's almost like we need to hire sociologists or people with sociology degrees to do social media.
Yeah.
Maybe there is finally a use for that degree, a saleable use for that degree. I hope so.
Right.
Brian, what would you say to businesses if maybe they're struggling or floundering? What would you tell them to up their game on social media?
Well, I think it's partially comes down. I talk about storytelling all the time, but there's really nobody in the brand. There's nobody better to tell your story, to relate your value proposition, to really convey your message than you, the brand. But it's about humanizing that, and I think the biggest problem with social media is it actually takes a lot of work to listen, and those that are really good on social media listen first, and then they post messages that really are helping, are providing value. I'm a disciple of the Jay Baer, Gary Vaynerchuk philosophy of jab, 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 right hook, provide content that helps build a relationship. My dad told my brothers and I that we had to learn golf because business was done on the golf course. And it wasn't because he taught me how to hard sell on the golf course, and really I'm not that great at golf either. But what it was about building relationships, humanizing, and really relating with the people that you're trying to have this community with. So I think one of the things that I see, one of the biggest trends, is the future of business is really about community. And it's not talking at them, it's talking with them. And so if you are a brand, no matter if you're on Facebook and you're on Google+, you have to understand the community and audience that are on each one of those. And I think that's where we miss it. We look for an easy button. We look for this idea that we can, if we just spam them enough because it worked on email marketing, that it's going to work on social. And sometimes I wonder that when we added the word marketing to the end of social media marketing, if it ruined part of our message on social media because we forget about the first word being social. And I think those brands that really get that, relate, listen, and convey their story. Don't sell me, give me a reason to care. And I think that's an element that true brands are really embracing, and the communities on each one of these social networks are amazing. I recently became a major addict to Snapchat, and it was a platform 6 months ago, I wrote a blog post that said it was the biggest waste of time I've ever found in social media. And now I'm apologizing because I'm loving the raw nature of this one-to-one communication and conversation on it. So for me, that's what I say. I tell brands, tell your story, embrace it. And really, if you're open, if you're human and you're willing to fail fast, social media becomes pretty easy. The problem is those are scary things.
The thing with Snapchat, though, I mean, it's based on the ephemeral message. So how does the fact the message goes away help you tell your story on Snapchat?
Oh, I love that question. It's about capturing and acquiring attention. There's so much noise today on social media that someone will send you a tweet and you'll be lucky if you saw it. And here's a great example. A small business, I was moving across the country, a small business named Bellhop Nation. They tweeted at me and said, Brian, I heard you talking about on Periscope that you were moving. We have college movers. If you need help, we're here for you. Well, I missed the tweet because I was driving across the country. When I pulled into it, and I had talked about on the Periscope that I was in love with Snapchat. When I pulled into the gas station, I looked, I had a new Snapchat message. But for me to capture that and listen to that, I had to have my finger on the screen, and if I look away, it's gone. I lose it. So it captured my attention. I literally held it, and these guys simply said, hey, Brian, we saw on Twitter that you were looking for movers. We do moving, and they had like a funny little gig where they picked up the guy in a chair and moved him around. Well, I can tell you what, they're moving my family into my house next week because they listened, they engaged, and they captured my attention. And Snapchat, that captured, acquired attention, that it does go away, is so contagious because I think it's really hard to stand out from the noise today.
What do you tell businesses when maybe they're floundering, maybe they're not sure what they're doing with social media? What piece of advice do you give them?
It's very hard. I used to say, I think when we talked 2 years ago, and I shared that I really suck at social media, but I'm really good with people. So I started really using social media, and mostly Google+, because that's where I really talk to people. I can see your faces. On Twitter, I don't know who I'm talking to. So that was the hard part. But now the thing with social media is like the scary part is that you talk to the void. You don't know who's there. It's kind of like this huge thing that's like, okay, who are these people? What are they talking about? What are they doing? And how do I make them love me? So instead of that, when there's a tool that's really, really easy to let you know how you can help other people, and it's basically a survey, right? So people come to your site, or you ask them questions online on social media, you posted it, and you just ask them question, hey, what's your problem? Because you probably have like a billion solutions, and you don't know which one of your solution fits me. And so if you just find what fits me, like what bugs me, right, then I will become your biggest fan. And it happened to me because some of my clients are building relationship advice, and I was telling them you need to find a survey. You need to survey your audiences because you don't know what they're doing. So to give them an example, I went and I looked for a survey, and I found one. It had like 70 questions, and I'm like, who's going to answer 70 questions? Come on. And then I start going through those 70 questions, and before I know it, I'm done. And they give me an example of what I am, like what my flaws in a relationship is. And I'm like, oh my God, they're right on spot. I really need their advice. I went and bought 2 of their books right there and then.
Okay.
So if they know exactly, like if you know, like, hey, if you're going to buy my product tomorrow, you're going to find the love of your life. You're going to wake up skinnier. You're going to whatever, but
a real benefit.
That's my issue, right? I want to wake up skinnier. If you tell it to Mike, Mike will be like, yeah, whatever. Talk to me about food or wine.
Okay.
Right? But if you know what each person's buttons are, then you can really help them. So surveying is really, really easy. It's free tools out there, and that allows you to know how
Survey
to
Monkey, or do you have a favorite survey tool?
Jotform is free.
Jotform.
Jotform.
Okay.
Free, and you can integrate it with PayPal. You can integrate it with YouTube. You can let people upload images and all that stuff. So super easy, and basically you segment the people who are coming to your site, and now you know how to talk to them.
Interesting. Okay.